Hello, hello, everyone. It's Dr. Christine Kaczmar here. Thank you for listening to Smart Digestion Radio. You are tuning in to episode 41, and we are going to cover dehydration and how it affects digestion. Stay tuned.
This is Smart Digestion Radio with Dr. Christine Kaczmar, where great advice goes in one ear and out the large intestine. The Poop Scoop Show starts now.
Hey everyone, welcome on in. It's Dr. Christine. How are you? What's new? What's exciting? I'm a little bit irritated with my microphone situation going on. I have this fancy setup and it's on the glitch right now. It's having some glitches. It's on the fritz. So I got the headset on, so I want to apologize at the top here at the beginning if the audio quality is not as good. I know that means a lot, and so I'm going to check this out and I'll publish it if it's good, but it's not going to be as good as my fancy system. So I just want to say that. Thanks for being here. It is back to school season. How's it going for you? If you have kids, how's it going? If you have kids in school, that is. One of the things that you could do for your child is make sure that they're hydrating. And we're going to talk all about that extensively today. And, you know, the body is a very complex chemical plant. It's a factory. And it can be very delicate, extremely delicate, and sensitive to the changes or the fluctuations in water and food and all of this. So we're going to talk a lot about it. And what I want to do is I want to share with you the most common causes for dehydration are diarrhea, vomiting, sweating, diabetes, burns, and a big one that I talk about in many other realms, which is insufficient digestion. Insufficient digestion. When I say realms, I can't help but think about Game of Thrones. You guys fans? I mean, we got to wait 2 years, right? For the final season, is it? Little digression here, but I have been rewatching the first seasons, the first episodes, and man, does it make a lot more sense going back and watching it. But anyway, as far as the realm of your gut and the realm of digestion, hydration is key. Keep in mind that water is the second most important nutrient, right behind oxygen. Okay, so we can go days and days and days without food, but you can't go very long without water. And what I want to do next is read to you a few quotes. The first quote I want to read to you is by Oliver Wendell Holmes. I love this quote. You may have heard of it before. It goes like this. Quote, I firmly believe that if the entire materia medica, as now used, could be sunk to the bottom of the sea, it would be all the better for mankind and all the worse for the fishes. So materia medica, or prescription meds, and what's going on with pharmacology these days, very applicable here with this quote. Also from George Bernard Shaw says, quote, the reasonable man adapts himself to the world. The unreasonable one persists in trying to adapt the world to himself. Therefore, all progress depends on the unreasonable man, end quote. Good stuff. And I'm going to be quoting a lot from one of my favorite MDs, and I talked about him last podcast, and that is Dr. Batman Galige. And if you've not picked up his book, Your Body's Many Cries for Water, You're Not Sick, You're Thirsty, Don't Treat Thirst with Medication, you can check this out by going to Amazon or by going to watercure.com. Highly recommend this book. It's an essential tome for everybody's library, really. Like I said, water is your second most important nutrient behind oxygen. If I were to define dehydration, it's when water loss is greater than water gain. Dehydration will stimulate thirst in three primary ways, and that is the increase of saliva, the increase in blood osmotic pressure, and the decrease in blood volume. So symptoms can range, dehydration symptoms can range from mild to life-threatening. For the purposes of today's podcast, as it relates to dehydration, I'm going to pay a little bit more emphasis to what happens with high blood pressure in dehydration, diabetes in dehydration, and protein insufficiency or protein deficiency as it relates to dehydration. Something that's very simple that everyone can be doing immediately to check to see about dehydration is, number one, to be looking at your urine. Not even the very first urine of the morning. That one's going to be darker yellow because your body's expelling waste throughout the night. We're more acidic because we're not properly breathing as we sleep. This is the reason for the discoloration of your urine to be more on the yellow side, the dark yellow, even browner side. But throughout the day, If you look at your urine, it should be very clear. Just a tinge, just a very slight tinge of yellow, if anything. It shouldn't be foamy. It shouldn't be bright yellow unless you're taking some supplements that can change the color of your urine. But a really good indicator to see how well hydrated you are is to look at the color of your urine. So teach your children this, teach your kids this. The next thing you could do is, if you're looking at the top of your hand, just before your hand reaches your wrist, just grab a little piece of your skin between your thumb and your index finger and pinch it and then let go. Pinch and then let go. The quicker that skin goes right back down to the hand, the more hydrated you tend to be. But if you're grabbing a piece of that skin and you let go and it kind of like slowly melts into your hand, if you will, that's usually an indicator of dehydration. Let's get into a little water trivia, if you will. Water makes up your total body weight in the range of 45% to 75%. Infants are 75% water. Obviously, as we age, our water decreases. The total content of our body weight of water decreases. Fat cells contain nearly zero water. Therefore, people who are larger have smaller water proportion than people who are lean. One of the first aspects of dehydration I want to hit is hypertension or high blood pressure. I can't tell you how many people I notice who come in when I check their blood pressure. When it's elevated, if I give them some water to drink, we check it a few minutes later, the blood pressure already tends to come down. Hypertension, high blood pressure, is directly linked to dehydration. You wouldn't think it, but it's so true. It's just that when we don't drink enough water to serve all the needs of the human body, cells become dehydrated and they lose some of their water to the circulation. This then affects your capillary beds. In some areas, they'll tend to close, and this needs to be adjusted for. And if there's no adjustment, if there is no alternative, the body will close down these lumens, these little capillaries, and that will lead to the dehydration. It's much more complicated than I'm explaining there, but that's the gist of it. To really elicit the image or the visual that I'm looking for you with dehydration, I want you to be thinking about plants that haven't been watered, or think about a desert where the ground just seems like it's been through such a drought, right? This is the same kind of thing I want you to be considering when it comes to your body. If you don't take care of it, if you don't give it water, you are damaging yourself. Just pure and simple. Pure and simple. A lot of people, they don't even start to drink water until they're thirsty. In many instances, that's already too late. When we lose the thirst sensation, or when we fail to recognize the other signals of dehydration, and we drink less than the body's daily requirements, our vascular beds are going to shut down. This is temporary, but in its temporary situation, it's going to affect homeostasis or body function. Dr. Batman-Galige says, quote, "The present way of treating hypertension is wrong to the point of scientific absurdity." Let me say that again. Regarding his medical brethren, he says, "The present way of treating hypertension is wrong to the point of scientific absurdity." As an example, you must take diuretics and get rid of water. If you do not drink sufficient amounts of water, the mechanism of the body is to then keep the sodium and to hold the water. And so there's this whole sodium, sugar situation going on in the human body, also with some amino acids, that affects this gradient. It affects how well do the cells receive water, and so on and so forth. So keeping the sodium in the body is a last resort way of retaining water. And when diuretics are given to get rid of sodium, the body then becomes dehydrated. And diuretics never are going to cure hypertension. In fact, they make the body more determined to hold on to salt and water. All right, let's take a quick break, and I'll be right back. The phrase, "you are what you eat," is false. Better said, you are what you digest. Hey, it's Dr. Christine Kaczmar here, and if you're listening and you're out of state, maybe you live in Florida, maybe you live in Texas, and you'd like to work with me, I have you covered. Go to virtualdigestiondoc.com. That's virtualdigestiondoc.com. You will see there are 3 very specific ways that we can work together, even at long distance. Check out virtualdigestiondoc.com. Are you tired of being gassy and bloated and feeling like you got a bowling ball in your belly? I've got you covered there too. Go to omegadigestion.com to pick up my flagship product, Smart Carb. Smart Carb is a digestive enzyme with all of the enzymes in it you need to digest fats, carbs, proteins, dairy, you name it. It also has the healing botanicals of turmeric, black pepper, and cinnamon. Check it out by going to omegadigestion.com. That's omegadigestion.com. All right, welcome back. Further quotes from Dr. Batman Galige. He says, quote, medical professionals do not understand the vital role of water in the human body. Medications are palliatives. They are not designed to cure the degenerative diseases of the body. Piggybacking on Dr. Galige, Batman Galige, and I hope I'm saying his name right, by the way, but I just like saying Batman in the Galige part, Batman Galige. What I love about what he says, I further have said too, which is prescription medicines are never going to heal the body. Prescription medications are never going to heal the body. They cannot heal the body because they are not nutritional. They are not foods. As he says, medications are palliatives. They are not designed to cure the degenerative diseases of the body. And I'm adding to that and saying that nor are these prescription medications designed to nourish the body. They are only there to block enzymatic processes. That's what prescription drugs do. They are, quote unquote, effective at pain relief and so forth because they are blocking enzymatic processes in the body. You are tampering with Mother Nature. You are tampering with homeostasis. You are tampering with innate intelligence when you do this type of thing. Again, I'm not talking about crisis care and emergency care. A whole different set of, ideology there behind that. Clearly, we have the best doctors around when it comes to crisis and emergency care. But when it comes to, hypertension and your blood pressure, to kind of tie this little section of the podcast into a little bow here, I want to make sure that we talk about pulse pressure. And if you've watched any of my videos on my Facebook page, on my YouTube channel, you'll probably hear me talk about pulse pressure there. But in case you haven't heard of it, if you take your blood pressure, you have a top number called systolic and the bottom number is diastolic. Think South Dakota, right? That's what worked for me since 4th grade. Anyway, the top number and the bottom number. So for example, 120/80. The separation between those two numbers is going to be 40. That's a great pulse pressure. Pulse pressure is not the same as pulse. This is different. I'm talking about pulse pressure, the top number, bottom number separation. So when we have pulse pressure over 155/60, in that example, the difference between those two numbers is 95. That's terrible. Okay, so an average 120/80, the difference between those two numbers is 40. An example of 155/60, the difference in those two numbers is 95. The higher the pulse pressure, the greater your stroke risk. And the number that you want to be under is 60. So anything 60 or higher is unacceptable for your pulse pressure. Next, you want to make sure that your healthcare practitioner or even you are taking your blood pressure bilaterally, meaning on both sides. If you find things that are starting to go wrong, this is a clue. That's why your blood pressure should be performed on both sides. What I want to do now is move into diabetes as it relates to dehydration. And let's understand that people who have diabetes, they have an increased risk of being dehydrated because high blood glucose levels will lead to that. They will lead to dehydration. High blood glucose levels will. Your brain needs sugar. It needs glucose for its energy, and it needs it for metabolic conversion to water. Water and salt are absolutely essential for the generation of hydroelectric energy in the body, particularly for the neurotransmission mechanisms. Again, this is all in Dr. Batman Galige's book. If you want to read even more in depth about that, grab that book. And again, you can go to watercure.com to learn more. The pancreas, let's face it, this is a complex gland. It's very complicated, the pancreas is. In addition to the manufacture of insulin, it also is engaged in producing tons and tons of a watery solution called bicarbonate. And this is the solution that's injected into the duodenum, the first portion of your small intestine. After the acidic contents of the food hit the small intestine, it has to now be alkalized, if you will. It has to be, the acidity has to become reduced. And that's one of the roles of the pancreas, is to put that bicarbonate, that alkalizing product, into the duodenum. And before I round out the completion of really talking about diabetes as it relates to dehydration, I want to move into the third tier I'm talking about with you, which is about protein insufficiency or protein deficiency. And one of the things that was really highlighted well in Dr. Batman Galige's book is the role of tryptophan. And tryptophan is a natural brain regulator for salt absorption in the body. Tryptophan is an amino acid. It's derived from protein. And tryptophan leads to the production of serotonin, melatonin, and these are huge. Melatonin for your sleep, serotonin for your overall well-being, okay, your mood, all of that has a lot to do with tryptophan. So let's dive into how this relates to diabetes. Well, the main way is to understand, as I've said before, is that protein makes different chemicals in your body, not only tryptophan, which leads to serotonin, most of which is made in your gut, but protein also makes insulin. Protein also makes insulin. Protein also makes thyroxine. Protein also makes hemoglobin. So you understand why I've been saying all this time that we are such a protein deficient society. We're not eating enough protein. And great sources of protein are going to be pastured eggs. I love eggs. I disagree with a lot of my colleagues on this. I think if you're getting a healthy hen, you're going to get an amazing egg. Obviously, I want you to be taking digestive enzymes for all your foods, even if you're symptom-free. But other good sources of protein are going to be wild-caught fish. You don't want to get farm-raised. Grass-fed beef, I think, can be amazing and sensational for our gut because we are consuming the greenery from the grass that these cows are eating. They should be grass-fed, not corn-fed. They should be grass-finished, not corn-finished, okay? And so when it comes to understanding the healing role that protein plays, we need to dive into deeper terms and look at that it is responsible for tryptophan. It's responsible, protein is. It is responsible for insulin, thyroxine, hemoglobin, and a lot of the neurotransmitters, as I've said, come from protein. So you have to eat it, and you have to properly digest it, which is even more crucial. Other great sources of protein to round that out are going to be some organic chicken, organic turkey, seeds, specifically pumpkin seeds, sesame seeds, high sources of tryptophan as well. Within that, some good organic cheese or raw cheese would be even better. Raw and organic would be ideal. And algae, things like spirulina. These are good sources of protein, as is hemp. So those are some places to start in terms of where you're getting your protein. And as I said before too, I want you aiming for 60 grams of protein minimally daily. Okay, minimally, I want you aiming for 60 grams of protein per day. For a lot of women, you want to be closer to 80. So when it comes to dehydration, it's important to understand that it can cause a severe depletion of your brain's tryptophan when you're dehydrated. It can lower your brain's tryptophan. But you are in control, all right? You're in control. So something you could do automatically to improve your body's hydration and to improve your body's tryptophan is to eat those protein-rich foods, like I mentioned, because protein breaks into tryptophan, tryptophan breaks into serotonin, and so on, melatonin. The other thing you could do is to exercise, because when you increase your exercise, when you're utilizing your muscles, you are then increasing your brain's tryptophan. Normal levels of tryptophan in the brain maintain a well-regulated balance in all functions of your body, aka homeostasis. This is what we want to be achieving, is balance in the body. With a decreased supply of tryptophan to the brain, there becomes a deficiency to all functions of your body. That can even lead to depression and mental disorders. These could all be consequences of brain tryptophan deficiency or imbalance, which also means, let's make this even more broad, depression and mental disorders, diabetes, hypertension can all be traced back to not only dehydration, but not eating enough protein. This is why I have a problem with somebody being long-term vegan. Usually they're not getting enough protein to sustain balance. And a lot of people who are eating vegetarian even are really eating a lot of wheat and carbohydrate. They're not eating a lot of good plant-based food and foods that are high in protein, such as eggs, if you're a vegetarian, this is, or hemp or something like this, or algae. So very critical to be eating these food supplies. To summarize this podcast on dehydration, let's start with what we had revealed in the beginning, which is a quote by Dr. Batman Galige, which is, silencing the different signals of water shortages of the body with chemical products is immediately detrimental to the cells of the body of the person being treated. Let's back up and say, even before you have issues like diseases or a lot of symptoms or insulin sensitivity, whatever the case is, you are in control, you are accountable and responsible for your health. So the very minimal thing to be doing is to hydrate. Now, one thing I haven't covered yet, which is how much is adequate, Dr. Christine? How much water should I be consuming? I can tell you this, a lot more than you are. It's something that I monitor when patients come to see me, and most people are drinking around 32 ounces of water. So bare minimum, 64 ounces. But the more you weigh, the more water you're going to want to consume as well. So I think everybody should be aiming for 3 quarts or 96 ounces. Most of that water, this is critical to understand, should be consumed half hour before you eat or 2 hours post-meal. Do not consume so much of the water while you are eating. And understand that foods that are going to dehydrate you, that contain water, like tea and coffee, alcohol, pop, juice, these don't count as your water. You should be drinking water. Just water, okay? Maybe you could put like a lemon wedge in there or two, or maybe you can put a little sprig of mint or some watermelon into your water to infuse it with some other goodness. That's fine. But you want to be aiming for 64 ounces minimally to 96 ounces, maybe even more if you're sweating a lot and so on. To say that you are what you eat, again, is false. You are what you digest. So if you happen to be somebody who has diabetes, if you or somebody you know has hypertension or high blood pressure, or somebody that when you see your urine, you're seeing it bright yellow throughout the day and you're not taking any supplements, this is a clear sign that you have digestive deficiencies. And most often they lead to protein imbalance. Okay, so when we talk dehydration, there's a lot of similarities to what's going on with protein. You are not what you eat. You are what you digest, and that's what I specialize in. So if you want to work with me again, you know how to do that. virtualdigestiondoc.com is the way. Join my Facebook group too, and I will see you next time. Thank you for listening. Alrighty then, another episode of Smart Digestion Radio is in the books. However, the conversation never stops there. Great hubs to connect with me are going to be my Facebook page, which is The Digestion Doc. That's my handle on Twitter and Instagram as well. If you are interested in joining my community, my private inner circle over on Facebook, go to healthyrebelsfb.com, healthyrebelsfb.com. And my other main sites are thedigestiondoctor.com and omegadigestion.com. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for being a part of the mission. My mission is to save 5 million lives from the broken medical model, and I cannot do it alone. So thanks for being here, and I'll see you next time.